4 years ago, Academy Lanes in Haverhill, Mass. was the first American Candlepin Bowling Center to earn the right to host the International Candlepin Championship outside of the state of Maine. The two teams to get the top seed in that tournament are here 4 years later tonight, as Academy Lanes takes on Lucky Strike for Candlepin Bowling's richest prize, the International Candlepin Championship. Hi again, everybody. It's great to have you with us. I'm Kyle Bruce, and we are delighted to have Mike Morin here on the call of tonight's championship match. Mike, great to have you aboard.
I'm very happy to be here, and I really got hooked on this format when I went to Moncton last year and watched it play out in Canada. And I also saw it many, many years ago when there was some version of it, I think, out in the western part of the States. It may not have been the Worlds at that time, but the same idea was happening, and it's to where it is today.
Absolutely. Let's get right into the starting lineups for both teams. First of all, let's take a look at Lucky Strike. Chris Bover will be leading off. He's the defending Easter Classic champion. And, Shaun Baker will be bowling second. Dave Godwin, Dave Barber, the captain, and the Dynasty Jeff Surrett bowling anchor. For Academy, the host team, Chris Sacchetti leading off. Hasn't been bowling much. We'll see how he performs today. Mark Strangio, the captain. Corey Packard, Nick Norcross, and on the end, Bryan Fuller Jr. And here to start us off is Chris Bover out of Nashua, New Hampshire. He's been around a long time, Mike, and he's everyone on Lucky Strike that's bowling right now, a future Hall of Famer.
Yeah, the team is stacked, and I can tell you, as far as I've known Chris since he was probably maybe 12 or 13, and the reason is that my daughter bowled on Saturday mornings at Leda Lanes, the same league he was on. So I got to know Chris and his father, of course, Roland, I think, who we see all the time. So it's been great to watch him from the formative years to where he is today.
Chris, a member of the class of 1995 at Merrimack High School. So I don't know Chris as long as you have, but I remember when he was 18 bowling against Dan Murphy in the States on Channel 50, and I think Dan threw 440 at him. And Chris made good account of himself, going right around 400 if memory serves. An open for Bover as he settles for a 9. Sacchetti takes 10.
It was just a one-box final.
Chris doesn't have, meaning Sacchetti does not have an average because he's been taking some time off, having some health concerns. He's working to get through. He's got a high single of 191 and a high triple of 463. He threw a 339 in the semifinal against Maria's subs as Bover buries it in the pocket and looks at 5, 8, and 10.
Isn't that one of the most annoying things in the game, is to bury it and then leave a split?
Uh-huh. Sacchetti makes it look easy with a bomb. As we take a look at it unfold again on replay, tight in the 1-3. See what Chris does here. All right in the object. Bover threw a 379 in his semifinal appearance against New England Flooring. A very tight match. Actually, both semifinal matches, Mike, were pretty tight.
And these two teams had a bye, right, through the first round?
Correct, yes.
So does that help, do you think? Are they fresher, or?
I think it certainly helps getting a bye in that you only have one match to bowl, and if you win it, you're in the finals. So there's an 11 match round robin that takes place, and 3 rounds to get to this finals. We take a look at Shaun Baker from Lynn as he punches half Worcester left, and we take a look at the captain, Mark Strangio. Big hit, and he touches them all.
It brought the crowd to life, that's for sure.
This is true. Bake still has some work to do on that one. Shaun threw a 386 in his semifinal appearance against New England Flooring, and in the singles knockout, which took place on Monday, he was number 2 in his roll-off, throwing a 689 as we take a look at Mark Strangio's strike, kind of a high hit there.
You figure there's maybe an inch or two that separates that hit from the spread eagle.
Yep.
Which really makes this game maddening because you are rewarded for hitting the head pin with a 4-pin drop and an almost impossible split to make.
But we keep coming back, though.
We do. We pay good money to torture ourselves.
First bonus ball for Strangio yields 2 as he takes out the half Wister. Nice recovery from Baker, leaving the 10.
Ow.
Just a 4 fill.
That one slip in the gutter? Yeah.
Score that at 9. And a strike 4 5 box for Strangio, so that mark doesn't.
No, he's still under 20.
Right, didn't have the kind of impact he would have wanted. And in the 3-hole for Lucky Strike, we have Dave Godwin against Corey Packard for Academy.
Well, we can all relate to the occasional bad box because, well, somebody like me has more of those than good ones. But I think the average bowler can look at that and say, you know what? I relate to that.
Dave held on to that one a little too long. Dave, a 122 average for the week. He had a 127 average, which is 4th in the division. It's a couple of both first balls of this time around. Maybe some butterflies. And a nice recovery for a spare by Godwin.
Dave Godwin is somebody else that I think many of us watched growing up, especially if you ever hung out at Pilgrim Lanes, where I think he did most of his bowling in the annual Rock and Bowl, and he was marked, I think, for good things from a very early age.
Yeah, his numbers certainly dictate he's one of the great young bowlers we have in the game, as Corey settles for a 10 as he picks up the Horseman. Godwin a 235 high single, and that was part of his high 5, which was 784.
Wow. So
which included a 106.
So a 235 game, knowing how explosive he is there a chance, of course I asked the question when he throws a 1
Cherries the 4.
Right, that he ever breaks the 245 held by Ralph Semin and Chris Sargent?
Well, anything can happen.
If anybody could, he'd be one that I'd put some money on to do it.
Definitely. Another strike. This time Corey Packard. So 3 strikes already, the early statement made by Academy. Dave had a 343 against New England Flooring in the semifinal. Here's the Brooklyn pocket hit from Corey Packard, touching them all. As we move into the 4-hole and we take a look at Dave Barber and Nick Norcross. Dave on the head pin, leaving the numbers full. 2-pinner for Norcross.
And the 7 didn't go down.
Not much he can do with that, but
no. Just swear a lot and hope.
Right. That's the name of the game.
It is.
Oh,
now
he
see,
tried.
the ball almost took it out.
Yep. Norcross in the 2-pinner.
Oh.
A little wide that time.
I think Nick is one of the nicer young bowlers that I've met. Just very respectful and certainly a great bowler.
A 10 box for Norcross. Nick averaging a 120 this week. Overall, he's a 128. He had a 417 triple, round 4, starting Wednesday against Spike's Chimney Services. Full Horseman right plus the 8 for Barber. Another two-pinner for Norcross.
Now that's the kind of wood you like to see in front of the 4-7.
Sometimes that double wood can do
True.
some strange things as Barber takes out the horseman but leaves the 8. Norcross not taking any chances, just blows that double wood back into the 4-7 for his first mark. Barber settles for 10. And now it's anchor time. How about this for a pair? Bryan Fuller Jr. for Academy against the Dynasty, Jeff Surrett for Lucky Strike. Jeff featuring a 127 average, a 204 high single, and he set, Mike, his new high triple this week. 483, round 3 against the defending champion Kingswood Mooseheads. Strings of 174, 177, 132.
I'm sure that you're thinking about 500 when you've got, what about 340, 350 going?
Yeah,
in.
351
Yeah.
for 2, yeah.
Wow. And I'm thrilled to have that for 3.
Yeah.
Which I've only done once this year.
Yeah, hey, you know.
Well, both these bowlers come from bowling, you know, good genetics because they've both had fathers who were very prominent in the game. Great TV competitors and very fierce performers.
Yeah, speaking of fathers, Jeff's dad finally going into his rightful place in the Candlepin Bowling Hall of Fame, as we were both at the banquet that he was at, that Jeff was at, and his family.
It was really nice. The little video composite of his career was put together that you voiced so beautifully. It was nice. I kind of wish everybody had that kind of a presentation when it's their turn to be inducted.
The thing that's difficult is the footage.
Yes.
It's so hard because so much footage has been lost. As Fuller has a mark that he puts up. Nice shot from Surrett, even though that's for a 10. 4 marks for Academy going into this box number 3 of string 1 of the International Candlepin Championship.
Next year back to Canada, right, Kyle?
That's correct. The voting is completed and going back to Moncton for 2019.
Same house as it was last year?
Yep. I read an article, one of the Canadian newspapers, about when they held it in 2013. As Siketi looks at the king, number 5, saying that there were 143 400s.
What?
I'm serious.
That
That's what
week?
the article said, yes.
Oh. That's annoying.
That's Candlepin Bowling.
Yeah.
No. So another opportunity to put up a mark. Goes by the boards, but there's a lot of time left. Just starting this first string of the final. And a 10 for Bover. Bover had finished the number 8 position in the singles knockout. Lost in the second round despite throwing 138.
I know some of the bowlers don't always want to bowl in that singles knockout event. I don't know what the thought is on that. They don't want to waste it all for the greater good of the team.
No, I think that's precisely what it is. You'll notice with Lucky Strike, I think 4 of their bowlers bowled in it. Shaun Baker, Sean McKinley, obviously Bover, and Bryan Fuller Jr. bowled for Academy, as well as Nick Norcross. Oh, what a bid. Academy profiling different color laces on their shoes. I don't know if that's part of their charm.
Each bowler has different colored laces. Is that it?
Yeah, I think the left.
You sure? It just
almost all of them. I'm pretty sure Corey Packard has black laces, but.
So you don't think it has anything to do with men who just can't coordinate fashion properly? This is
that could be part of it. Yeah.
I speak on behalf of myself. I'm not tossing any stones at these bowlers.
Off the head pin just for that time. The 1 and the 7 for Baker. Oh, a fine bid, but the 7 is still there.
That's where you want to hit it.
Yes. Clearing out the 1 and 7 for his first mark of this match. As we watch it unfold again on replay.
Props to the graphics and the scoring. It can be difficult in a singles match, let alone when you've got 10 bowlers. So, nice job to the production crew, a.k.a. Was it Frank that did that? Or was
yes.
That you?
Big hit and the 5. Yes. There's another one. So a pair of marks for Baker this time up. And a 10 spare for Strangio as we go back to the 3-hole this time. The team's really into it, but the gallery, if it wasn't for the teams, the gallery would be so quiet.
Well, there hasn't been a whole lot to shout about yet. Well,
you were saying
I spoke too soon, yeah.
Corey Packard doubles up. Godwin got a break, but that wood.
Yeah.
3 pieces on the plate in front of that 5-8-9 triangle.
I'm guessing he makes it.
There you go.
I was barely right.
Well, you can never tell the way that wood.
No. If you don't hit that one right, you're going to not make it. But
Corey Packard's double, so this next ball being so crucial. Really want to make it count. It's a thing that almost penalizes you when you throw a double. Sometimes you run the middle on the first ball and do your job by hitting the head pin. Here we go.
Oops. A skip lob there, but great fill.
8 on the first.
Thank you.
6 in the first for Godwin. We'll look at the 1, 3, 9, and 10. A 2-pinner for Packard. 3 in the 5. That would, I would think, should only help him. And he missed the object. Dave a little heavy on number 1 that time. Corey finished second in his division with a 123 average. He had a 428. Triple at his 163. Tied for the high string in the division. Did that round 5 against Jackson Strong. Norcross filling a spare. Barber had a pair of 10s. Bonus. Got away with it. 6.
Dave Barber, another member of the I Had a Professional Bowler for a Dad club that we're seeing today.
Who's in the house, I believe.
Is Jimmy in the house? There's always been kind of a fun little give and take between the two of them, because one would have like a big game and then the other one would break that person's high single. I think at this point, though, Dave has the higher of the two high scores.
Of course, his dad being the second on the old Channel 5 show to throw the four-bagger.
Yes.
As he did during the 84 season against Phil Clough. As he had top seed that year in the live show.
It's the beauty of YouTube is you can watch some of those matches now. I think I watched that one you just referred to a couple of months ago. Jump on the treadmill in the morning and put up YouTube and pull up a Channel 5 show or a Stars and Strike show or one of the local internet stream shows. It's nice to have that.
Where would we be without it?
Where would we be? Yeah, exactly. It would have made... ooh, there's a...
what a shot. What a read
shot
from Barber. Threw it. He threw that one in the ocean, but got rewarded for it. Doesn't matter as long as it. Let's take another look at it. Where the 9 should be. And there it is coming back.
Is. Like playing whack-a-mole.
Yep. But doesn't matter. Goes down as a spare. His first of the match. Big hit from Surrett, the 4-8.
Did you ever see the picture of Jeff Surrett when he was 6 years old bowling? He's got the most beautiful style and form. I came across it while working on my book. And I also have a score sheet when he was 6 with 125 string.
In that video that I put together for him, they talk about it on 5. And Gillis was mentioning it during the Open about how Jeff averaged, I can't remember, it was like 106 or something like that at 6 years old.
That looked like a pretty good hit to be leaving that.
Yep. But he's got a split, 4-7-10. I would rather take Jeff's single, the 7 in the corner.
I don't know. I think I go for Fuller shot because then I have an excuse when I miss it.
There you
when
go.
I miss the single
Way
pin.
to think positively, Michael.
You learn after a while when you bowl like me. You look for the spin.
There we go. Never a doubt there from Jeffrey as he neutralizes the 7. Score that at 9 for Fuller. So Lucky has 3 marks going into this next pair. Academy only has the spare from Strangio. There's go back to Bovair, who's still searching for his first mark.
Pinning well, but that's never good enough in this tournament.
No.
Did, in all the research you did, come up with what the average was for all the many, many games bowled that week?
For everybody?
Yeah.
I did not, but I'm sure that Dave Barber may have that answer given all the work he's done on the database.
He did a terrific job posting the,
the PDFs.
Yeah, the PDFs were great. Since I was homesick and couldn't be there, I was able to follow along.
That's an unusual leave for Bovair. He still has 3 pins standing. Little too fine on the head pin. Both bowlers open here.
I'd hazard a guess, though, that the scoring was lower this year than it was in Moncton last year. I mean, there's reasons for that, probably.
Most definitely.
That sometimes that's the elephant in the room that people don't want to talk about, the raised gutters and the whole deal. And it looked to me like most of the pros were in the 1-teens. There was a handful of them in the 120s.
High average was 129, which is pretty good, obviously. John Winchell won high average overall for this tournament. He beat Jeff Surrett by a couple tenths of a pin to win that. But last year, I believe Jonathan Boudreau was at 132. I think he might have been high average at 132. But
Yeah, I think Shaun Baker may have been the other bowler that the two of them were going back and forth on who was going to get that.
Right.
If I recall correctly.
And honestly, I feel like that goes into the voting for the captains for which house will host.
Oh, sure.
Every time around.
So do you find that it's more the bowling ability versus the ability to motivate or say the right thing at the right time? Is it always just the empirical number, or can it be?
No. But that brings up a great point. Talent always is going to drive your team. However, I feel like if you have the right captain that not only makes the right strategic moves within the match, works on the chemistry of the team and recognizes how to make his bowlers comfortable, how to get them through a tough stretch. I think you have two very good captains in this match. The thing about it, too, that we should talk about, as Sacchetti has a 4-box here, 63 after 6, is that Mark Strangio has had a lot of turnover with Academy. He lost one of the best bowlers in the state of New Hampshire in Jim Ayotte, who left, I believe, to go to Fenway Academy. He lost Aaron Spiller, one of the best bowlers out of Western Mass. So there's only 3 bowlers from the last time these two teams were here bowling at Academy for the International Candlepin Championship. Strangio being one of them, John Starner, who's not in the lineup right now, and Chris Sacchetti. But he's found a way to galvanize his team together as he is in the pocket, little high hit, but has the 9-10. So some possibilities with the wood here. Baker can't get the 2, gets the 1 and the 4, so he'll be open here. But getting back to my point, he's been able to keep everybody together, keep them loose, because that's very important. I think we might be seeing Lucky Strike here a little tight so far in the first half of string number 1.
Well, back to the captain thing, some of the finer points and some of the intangibles that you just addressed. What about when it's time to make that lineup change? Is there hurt feelings sometimes, or do you have to have a certain touch, or you just say this is what it is, and
Wow.
you're going to be sitting out?
I do think sometimes that there are hurt feelings as Strangio cherries the 4-pin on the first. No question about it. I think a lot of it has to do with the rapport that a captain has with their team, and is that bowler a good team bowler? I don't know how many guys go to the captain and say, look, I don't have it. I've got to step aside because we still have a chance to win the string.
I bet it might happen occasionally.
Sure.
I remember hearing a story about that when I was researching the book where I don't know who it was, but I think Tommy Ulster ultimately stepped in and took I mean, it may have even been Craig Holbrook, a name like that. And Craig, or whoever it was, Tommy replaced, it couldn't have been happier. Of course, they ended up winning, as I recall.
Right.
It was a happy ending to the story, but you're talking juggernauts with those names.
Sure, not a bad guy to have coming out of the bullpen.
No
You
kidding,
go with,
huh?
with
Yeah, and
Ulster.
why wasn't he in the lineup originally is the question.
That's another thing, too, because we're looking at 33 strings before you come into the playoffs. If we take a look at Dave Godwin, looking at a 3-1 here. When this tournament first started, I believe in 1985, you only had 5 bowlers on a team bowling 33 strings, and it's a long day. So you're looking at 9-10 hours of bowling with warm-ups. Now you have teams that have 10 bowlers. So part of it, I feel like, is keeping the guys fresh. You see with Dave Barber with his strategy for Lucky Strike, I believe Jonathan Boudreau, 19 strings. I think Dave himself was around 21. So while you might have to fight that urge to not have a guy like Jeff Surrett, for example, go 30 strings or 28, something like that. It's a long week. You just have to get into the tournament, as Bill Parcells would say. And these teams have done more than just that. They have the bye for both of their divisions, and they only have to bowl that semifinal match to get here.
Yeah, I kind of like it this way because it adds another level of strategy. You know, who are you going to play and when? And it's not just 5-on-5 for 3 strings or however many there are. You actually can make some chess moves by inserting or pulling out somebody that may not be doing so well. So it kind of makes it a little more interesting, I think.
No question. Not a bad half for Corey Packard, 76. Big head pin hit the strike. I think the ball took out the 7.
Dave Godwin, who was in a really bad traffic accident a couple of years ago, set him back for a little while, and but he seems like he's got it back.
Yeah, I mean, eventually he
hit by a truck on, I think, 495
yeah.
in his car.
Yeah, he almost got taken out.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah, right.
But won a state title, then went to the ICBA championship that they hold at the Big 20 every fall and won that. His captain, Dave Barber, the defending ICBA champion.
That's a fun tournament to watch. I wish more people would come up and see it.
I wish it were better promoted.
Well, there's you know, there's a lot of little reasons why.
True.
But that is certainly one of them. Slice that one a little too thinly.
It should be one of the biggest tournaments of the year because you're
Yeah.
bringing all the state champions together
right.
to bowl for one of the biggest prizes, and not a lot of people know about it as we see the strike from Godwin here. Dave Barber.
Oh.
The 1-5.
Is there a name for that we can actually use on television?
Well, we don't have the FCC looking over our shoulder.
No, we don't.
That we're aware
What
of.
does the F stand for in FCC?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, anyway.
Yeah.
After working 40-some years under its jurisdiction, I can, you know, say that they
Right.
can't do anything to me anymore.
That's right. Well, you've put in your time, so. Norcross gets the single, driving that piece of wood back.
It's great to see Cookie back. I mean, he's not in this game, but it's nice to see him standing there and such a positive force.
Looking for his 5th world championship.
Yeah.
The first.
I wonder who's got the most. I never even thought about that. I wouldn't expect you to know off the top of your head.
I can't. Well, see, the thing is that you've got the first 4 or 5 years, the same team won Marjam Supply. So that was Gary Carrington, Jack Ray. They won like the first 5, and I think they changed sponsors the 6th year and won again. So I don't know who has the most. Actually, the Canadians didn't win their first world title until 1993, and it seems like the last 15 years or so they've really exerted their dominance over the Americans. But for the second time in 3 years, we have an All-American final. As Norcross is open there.
Yeah, about a 60-pin difference right now, so not a whole lot of drama. Long way to go, though.
Oh, yes. Surrett up, filling a spare. Want some help in the corner, but corners are full. Not a bad break for Fuller. Brian's parents are here. Brian Classic and Kathy. Imagine having both of your parents bowling on 5. Your uncle went to one of the live shows, is in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, pretty good pedigree there for Bryan Fuller Jr.
His grandmother.
Oh, that's right.
Being a proprietor
It
for
was
such a
established,
long
I think,
time.
Lafayette Lanes,
Yep.
right? I think she seen pictures of Jeff as a toddler sitting on the lane at the foul line with a spread eagle, and he's using 2 hands to roll the ball down the lane. And now look where he's at.
Mm-hmm.
I remember watching his father first TV appearance on Stars and Strikes before I became a part of that show. He was phenomenal. I mean, I don't know that he won, but he may have been over 400 on his first time on TV. It was really impressive.
I remember against Clarence Davis, I want to say in '87, they were giving away a Ford Escort.
Yes.
And you needed a 200 to get it, and I think he threw 187.
Yes, that's exactly right.
And the story for that
Yep.
taping is that the crew at 50 had, oh, what a bid. The crew at 50 had some technical difficulties, so Jack, Bryan, oh, what a great shot. And a 10 for Surrett. The crew at 50 had some technical difficulties, so there was a delay in the match. So Bryan enjoyed some adult beverages with his brother-in-law, Jack. And even after that, he threw that, like I said, I think it was 187. Just incredible, incredible.
Talk about winning a car. Back in the days of Candlepins for cash, you could win yourself a car.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember the story told to me that a guy won I think it was a Pacer or a Gremlin. It was some car that you couldn't sell, so you gave it away.
Right.
So a guy ended up winning 2 of them somehow and had to sell one to pay the taxes on the double win.
He drew the shortest straw.
I mean, that's punishment. 2 Gremlins in your driveway.
Maybe put a Hemi in it. I don't know, salvage it somehow.
Put a Hemi in it, right.
Yeah. Oh. Is it true that Candlepins for Dollars had the biggest prize in terms of dollar amount in the history of bowling on TV?
I don't think so, Kyle, because it's funny you would ask me that, so I can quickly give you the answer. On the treadmill this morning, I was watching a little bit of a match. In fact, it was the last show that Frank Malacote and I did from Pilgrim Lanes. And in the Tournament of Champions ladder, the top prize, as I recall, was only $1,500. So it was not even what the Easter Classic is and some of the other tournaments.
I was thinking of the Tundra.
Oh, well, in that regard, yeah. But now, did that go to the bowler, or was
that
that
went to a fan?
A fan, right?
Yeah, it was like a $40,000 truck.
Right. Well, I suppose I was thinking in terms of what the bowlers were getting. But they gave cars away a lot on bowling shows back in the day. I remember Channel 5 did one, and they actually did the live drawing out on Rose Wharf in Boston. And I think Mark Fittrich, the late Mark Fittrich, who was an all-star pitcher for the Detroit Tigers, was the guy like drawing the winner or drew it ahead of time, and the woman was there to claim her car. So cars have always been kind of popular, but then come the taxes.
Oh, absolutely. A 2-pinner from Bovair is picked up. Both bowlers marking here as things are starting to heat up a little bit.
28-pin difference for completed boxes.
Bouncing it up, baby split 310. This is Shaun Baker. 1-2-7-10 for him. There it is. That 10 was a little reluctant to go.
Did the ball come back out of the pit, or another pin hit it from behind?
I thought it was the ball that got it. Nice shot.
Textbook shot.
Here we look at it again. 1-2-7-10.
Boom.
There it is. So matching spares here.
Now, was all the format leading up to the final match, or was it 5 boxes at a time, but they're just doing 2 for the championship, or was it?
No, it's the same format.
It's all the way through? Okay.
Yep, everything's the same. The only thing that changes is that once you get to the playoffs, it's all about total pinfall.
Yeah.
7 fill for Baker. And a fine recovery by Strangio, taking it out. Not the Philly wanted, but comes back, and Baker's open. Seated at the scores table for Academy, Mark Gregory. This is his 23rd, excuse me, year bowling in this tournament, and he could be a world champion in about 2 hours or so, as we take a look at the spare right there from Strangio.
He was a frequent visitor on Candlepin Stars and Strikes. Mark Gregory was. Father usually in the audience, as I recall.
Yep, Norm. Big pro wrestling fan, if memory serves.
Oh, is that right?
Yes. Big hit, and
no way that stays up. Wow.
Not the first ball Dave wanted, but with his talent, he can make it. He's a little frustrated right now. Corey bounces it up there, but takes care of that single. Nice shot.
Well, you called it.
The last one to go as we get some sidewall action. Take a look at it again.
Yeah, you just got to hit it so thin on either side
That's
to get
such a
that
tough
sidewall
shot.
action. About the only way to make that one.
The bonus, little light, 3-5-10. Good fill is 7 though. Oh.
So what do you do with this one? I see it all the time.
4-5-7, 5-6-10 has to be so frustrating.
Because you're hitting where you want to, you know, on the first ball.
I remember on your show on 50, Gary Carrington having the 5-6-10 and making it. I can't remember who he made it against, but I mean that's such a tough shot. Don't see that a lot. Well, gave it a run anyway.
About the best you can do.
Getting back to that discussion on keeping bowlers fresh, Godwin 19 strings.
Beauty.
Very consistent too. His high triple for the week was 396. So he did his job in terms of being consistent for his captain, Dave Barber, who is coming up to put a markup on the board. He only has a spare 2 to his credit in the 4th. Across has 2 marks right now for Academy. Got away from him, but not too bad, all things considered.
Oh, yeah.
9 out of there in a hurry for Barber. The 6-pin has a clear shot at. A little heavy there. That time for Norcross. Right in the face for Barber.
Strange to see Jonathan Boudreau not in action. We see him in the back having words with some of his teammates. Sean McKinley and who else is back there? Jeff Surrett.
He did not bowl in the semifinal either.
No?
No, he did not.
So was he just not feeling it? Does he have any kind of an injury, or what's the insight on that?
I talked to him before the match started. He's been trying to work through a knee that he had trouble with at a Pro Series event. The approaches were a little tacky, and his bowling has suffered a little bit. Because generally you're going to see him right there at the top in terms of average and total pinfall, what have you.
I mean,
he's 120 this week, and normally he's 126.
Right.
So, and he bowled 19 strings.
I wonder if he was bowling on a place that had synthetic approaches, which are just horrible for sliding.
I would agree. I don't. It happened at New Palace, and I haven't been to Fitchburg to that house.
All the way across.
I can't say for sure.
I mean, a lot of places are putting in the synthetic lane beds, but they're leaving the wood for the approaches. Much safer, easier to maintain. Fewer lawsuits.
Right.
I'm not going to name the place, but I went somewhere during the summer and bowled on synthetic approaches, not realizing that could be a hazard. And the interesting thing is, on the foul line is a disclaimer that says trip hazard. Well, okay, I've been warned. It's as if they knew that if they put that down, but I fell 3 times.
Oh.
And I don't have a real fast delivery, and I'm not a kid anymore. And I was concerned. I said, I'm not coming back here until you guys get this squared away. And they were concerned because I let them know.
Fuller takes care of the single. Surrett threw that one into the Atlantic, so he'll have the head pin for a 10. There it is.
Now we're down to an 8-pin difference. Academy advantage.
Both teams having 2 marks here up so far in the 7-8 pair. 4 horsemen left for Fuller Jr.
Don't like that piece of wood there.
Jeff off the head pin that time. 1, 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. One thing I'll say about Jeff, he doesn't get the first ball he likes. He has one of the best, if not the best, second ball.
Well, you called it.
As another spare. He doesn't, psychologically, it doesn't seem to phase him because he comes back, and as we take a look at it here.
Can I get you to pick my Megabucks numbers this week?
Yeah, I know. Can we split it, or?
Sure. If you make the picks, I'd be happy to split a few million with you.
Right. Anything can happen. Isn't that what they said?
That's their marketing line.
Right. Hey, Tri-State Megabucks, they were a sponsor for Channel 50.
That's very true. The New Hampshire State Lottery Commission, which is the first state to actually have a lottery.
Wow.
Back in the 60s, early 60s. You'd never know that the way they steered clear of any casino possibilities.
Yeah.
But they have Keno now, so.
Brooklyn hit for Sacchetti. He'll have the 310, excuse me.
Not great wood in this particular case, I don't think.
Bover still 3 pins standing. And he missed 3. A 7 box for Bover. That's a rarity for him. 9 for Sacchetti.
Come on, Sacchetti, let's go!
Well, first string nearly in the books. 40-pin advantage for Academy.
Bover, number 6 overall in his division this week with a 125 average. His best triple was 410. And the 5. Sacchetti bowled more this week than I would have anticipated, given that he hasn't really been bowling. He threw 21 strings, says he feels good.
He looks like there's nothing wrong or anything inhibiting him.
When he gets it going, he's one of those guys, and I've told him this before, that it's almost like instead of 60 feet to the head pin, it's almost like 40. Like, it just makes it
Yeah.
look so easy. And of course, you know, he's used to bowling at Academy, not just obviously for the International Candlepin Championship, but for Friday Night Pro as well. So he's 110 plus. Bover a disappointing 95.
Boy, that was smooth. That just came off his hand beautifully.
See what I mean?
Great roll on it.
That's how he is.
Yeah.
So a 121st game for him.
And other than a 4-box where he whistled right through the middle of the spread eagle twice, you know, this is a 25 game probably.
Yeah, I mean, he pinned pretty well. He had first ball average of 7.3.
Oh, that's a great stat. Who keeps that one?
That's what I'm doing at 4 in the morning.
Wow.
4, 6, and 10 for Strangio. Baker has number 10 with a clear shot. And he slides by.
Tell you, the new Cubica scoring system probably can give you that stat. It also can tell you how fast you're throwing the ball, which is probably interesting to know. If you're rushing or you're throwing too hard, if you've got a sweet spot number that you want to be around. I mean, there's more information than you probably need, but we're marketing to millennials now who want a little bit more to work with, maybe.
Sure, and I feel like in Candlepin, the more information you have, the better in terms of wanting to improve your game. If you have, you know, in terms of velocity, I mean, I don't know how crucial that is, but perhaps it can be in terms of taking a look at your velocity and comparing it to your performance, your accuracy.
Yes, exactly. See if you're trending the right way.
Right.
Because unlike 10-pin, where you really have a lot of things to think about, ouch, right through the hole, with oiling patterns and everything like that, basically you don't have that in Candlepin.
Right.
It's just the ball, either rubber, urethane, or whatever, and the surface. So those extraneous things like speed, it's good to know.
Nice recovery from Baker as he takes out that half whister for a 10. Strangio takes 10. 5 mark 115 for him, which is something that you don't see that often. But that's...
Well, Phil's a 4.
You hit two
4s.
His fill average is 4.8, so he hopes to do better in the second string. As we take a look at Dave Godwin.
It is fun to look at the Candlepin chat occasionally where guys will come on and start a thread about, hey, it's 6 marks and hit 98. Who can beat that? Then you get everybody throwing their versions and stories in. And again, when I see that, I feel better about myself. Don't feel good about that shot.
Yeah.
Got better.
Yeah. He deserved a better fate. Oh, the 6 is still there. Nice bid from Godwin.
Beautifully done.
Takes advantage. Eliminates the 3, 6, 10. 9 for Godwin. Corey right now at 122 plus. Godwin at 108. Godwin, the number 4 finisher in his division with that 127 average. The bonus. Brooklyn hit. How do you like that split, Mike?
Not a fan of it.
No, not really. 6, 7, 10. Godwin takes advantage. Sparing the 10th for him.
Well, you've been pretty good at predicting stuff today. Is he going to make this?
Well, my uncle used to do that all the time on when he would go to Channel 5 tapings, and then 2-3 weeks later you see it on TV. Will he make it?
Well, along those lines, Jim Putney, the late, great Jim Putney, told me a story. He had a tremendous 14-week run back in the early 90s. But in general, he might go to a tavern or a bar or someplace that would be showing, and people would be trying to bribe him with drinks to say what's going to happen for their own personal, I suppose, enrichment. And I don't know if he ever accepted any of those bribes, but I imagine that happened a lot to Pro Bowlers that were recognized who were on the screen at the same time.
If he didn't, he should have.
Yes.
You know, that year, 1990, Jim beating Don Santiago to
yes.
win that $10,000, and what I feel is the best live show out of, well, when they went to a 5-man format.
Yes.
That started in '83. A 138 for Corey Packard, spare 6 for Godwin, puts him at 124.
And that double strike in the second and third pumped up his pin count there to give him that 138.
That run from Putney was very remarkable. His career was very remarkable, as he was another one honored at the Hall of Fame banquet at DiBurro's right down the street.
Now, he died in December of last year.
Right.
And in January of 2017, I interviewed him for my book, Lunch with Tommy and Stasia. And at that point, we're talking, what, 11 months before he passes. He didn't know he was sick at that point. No idea.
Oh.
No. We sat down, had a nice lunch in Woburn one day, and just rolled the recorder and got his stories. And he was a good storyteller. And I'll give you a quick story about him. When I was on the radio at WCGY in the 90s, he was a listener, so I got to know him. He would call from time to time during that 14-week run, and he said, I can't really tell you much about this, but there's something that's, you know, I'm doing this for somebody special. Well, what it turned out is there was somebody who was either disabled or sick terminally or something, and the parent or whatever was sending socks to him, and they asked if he would wear these socks on the show. And so he did, and he kept winning, but he wouldn't give me the complete backstory until I finally nailed it at the interview. So watch the pin teetering here. And then he told me a little bit more about it, that there were more than one bowler getting those socks in the mail. I think maybe Don Richmond, Gary Carrington got something. And so he kind of thought it might be somebody trying to scam for money, for sympathy.
Mm-hmm.
But pretty common. You know, they were such big celebrities back then.
Nine for Norcross, that gives him a 110 string. 109 for Barber. 57 the difference going into the final pair, but Surrett has a strike, has a spare working in the 8th. Light hit, 310. Good fill. Good mixing action and the strike.
Oh.
That's what Jeff is saying right now.
He's saying much worse. No, he's a very well-spoken young man. I'm sure that bad words don't come out of his mouth.
Never, never. Not him. No, look at the strike from Fuller Jr.
Yeah, the 6-8 took the time going down. I'm sorry, the 4-8. Enjoying the great replay shots today. Hope you at home are as well.
First bonus ball. Wants that 6 to get out of there, and it does. Good chance to go spare on strike. Surrett will be open in the 10th. There it is. So Bryan has another bonus ball and a statement perhaps from Academy, as Surrett goes open in the 9th and 10th, and Fuller has that spare on strike.
He looks really loose and relaxed, doesn't he? Very confident.
The entire team looks very loose.
Yeah, good point.
And relaxed. And the results, I think, indicate that, as we have a 58 pin difference going into string number 2. Packard and Fuller Jr. doing the damage in that first string, and Lucky responds with that 559, which is one of their lowest strings of the week.
That's
so
what,
far.
not even a 112 average per bowler.
And they averaged over 600 as a team. Actually, I think they might have been the only team to average over 600. I think it was 612.
So we should remind everybody it's total pinfall here. There's no points assigned. It's just, you know, whoever can knock down the most pins in 15 games.
Dave Barber has brought in Eric Pelletier to take over the leadoff spot for Chris Bover, who had that 95 first string.
I'm sure that Chris is not surprised and certainly accepts it as a team player.
Yeah, Chris is one of the class guys in our game.
Agreed.
No question about it. And he's, in my opinion, he's destined for the Hall of Fame someday. The defending Easter Classic champion. He's won it at least twice.
At his home house.
Right. Here's a look at the goalpost being neutralized by Pelletier.
Being neutralized, I like
Yes.
that.
As he has a spare in the first. Eric lives on the North Shore in PBD, Mass.
Oh, wow.
The 1, 2, 3, and 4 on that first ball, and that was a good-looking ball.
It was. It was tailing away to the right, but still, he didn't deserve that.
Eric this week averaged 120, which is good for 17th. Threw 22 strings for Lucky. Ooh.
Well, that was a nice
try.
bid, huh?
Yeah.
Wow.
That one got away from Sacchetti a bit.
Trying to see what Eric has on his shoe.
Yeah, like that black cover on the.
Is that
Yeah,
sort of to help him stop, or?
yeah, perhaps. Now, obviously, as a lefty, he's sliding on the right foot.
Yeah.
So. Mark Stranger had a 115 in that first string. And it starts with a rather unfortunate-looking split. Shaun Baker off target. Baker had a 118 to his credit, and what a
Sweet.
shot! Cutting the 247 into that triangle for a spare. That's a tremendous shot.
What you hate is when you drop a two-fill on something like that.
Right.
I didn't jinx him.
Here it is again. 247 on the left, 6-9-10 in the corner.
Doesn't go without the wood, though.
No. But it goes out like one, and it's a spare.
That's right.
Nonetheless. Light hit. Good fill.
All right, you can spray those pins around on the deck.
Three and one for Bake.
Our research department indicates we were asking a moment ago about Eric Pelletier's shoe cover on one of the feet. It prevents the sole from tearing apart during a toe drag. Wow. So he must really, I'm gonna watch now to see how how severely that foot drags. Thank you, Frank, for that information. As a pro bowler yourself, that's a little more on your radar screen than mine, I guess.
You are a professional. Don't downgrade yourself.
I'm a professional something bowler. I'm not.
I remember seeing that footage with you against Dick Lutz at Pilgrim and how you dominated.
Well, it's funny, you know. I did make the 5-7 split without Wood. I do remember that. I had marks in the 9th and the 10th, and I needed them both, filled both of them well, and beat them by maybe 10 pins. So that's the highlight, if you want to call it that, of a television bowling career for a guy that's happy to hit 100.
These guys are not happy to hit 100.
No.
They're accustomed to going well over that. Big Brooklyn hit the 6-pin for Godwin. That's a great try. Godwin's single goes.
Well, this has been so fun so far, just sitting here watching the match, talking about it. I almost feel like I'm sitting in somebody's living room on a couch watching a match you're very comfortable to work with, and it's been great fun.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because all your years of being a professional, you paint the picture like it's so intimate that one could actually believe that were to be true.
Yeah. Well, with some of the bowling centers putting in, leather settees and nice furniture, well, not in this particular case, but I'll put that in the next contract negotiation.
As you should, because you deserve it. Light hit for Godwin. He'll look at the 9 and 10. Do you prefer the more contemporary luxury look to a bowling center? Actually, there aren't too many Candlepin houses that have the nice furniture.
I think it's a nice touch. I think I'm definitely old school. I mean, I'm much older than you, and come from the 50s when I started bowling in Detroit. It doesn't really matter to me, but I can see where it will matter to future customers, and I think it's a good thing to do that. Bowlerama in Portsmouth has made that change, and it looks great. And the scoring, and there's so many more options than just bowling. I mean, we all love bowling, but bowling may not cut it as just a sole revenue stream in the future center.
It definitely won't cut it.
No.
I mean, that's, again, I feel like that's the elephant in the room, in that you need to have multiple revenue streams in order to survive.
Well, I went to a conference, Bowl Expo in Las Vegas last year with Maria Angelotti, who's the executive director of the ICBA, and I got to sit in on a lot of sessions. I'm not an owner, I'm not a bowler, but I'm somewhat vested in the industry in general. And 10-pin has definitely taken that concept of multiple revenue streams and running. I mean, some bowling centers, 7-10, boom. Some bowling centers have gone with adding theaters. They've added paintball and some of the other more expected things like arcades. Good restaurants, good food is one of the keys for building business. And encouraging leagues. Leagues have been way down. Andrew Medeiros was telling me at Bowlerama, their league business is up 16% this year, which is counter to the trend in the industry.
Wow. That's interesting that you say that, because I feel like from my very brief time in the ICBA, as we see the 7-10 go that time, as Krause is working on his bonus. And he has the 189.
This is pretty when it goes. I'm not sure I've ever seen this made.
158 for Barber. Still some work to do. Getting back to what I was saying, it was my impression that proprietors wanted to increase their open bowling and get into more of the birthday parties, corporate functions. But you're right about, that's a very interesting trend about what is happening up in Portsmouth.
Oh, it's upside down almost everywhere.
Yeah.
And they wanted to increase open play, but they didn't have any choice because leagues just were dropping off, and you got to fill the lanes.
Right.
And that was one way to do it. So I think proprietors that have a lot of foresight will find ways to encourage bowling leagues to, because that's the bread and butter. You got 30 weeks of guaranteed income, but they're also doing leagues now in 10-week sessions. Instead of like, you got to commit for 30 weeks. Well, after 10 weeks, take a few weeks off, and then come on back. And most of the time, at least in Bowlerama's case, nobody's leaving.
That's great. I think the key point in any kind of scenario that involves leagues is your retention. And like you said, with that 30 weeks, that's a big commitment. We're looking at the 4, 5, and the 7 for Jeff Surrett. Oh,
It looked pretty good.
Jeff looking for his artillery here. Just wasn't there, as they say. The strike from Bryan Fuller Jr. 4 the last to go. Bonus. I think he got away with that one.
Yeah, he pulled it left, but he did get some good backdoor action.
Bryan, number 1 in his division in average, 124. But like Godwin, he was very consistent during the week. I think Jeff wants to go home. 8 on the strike for Fuller Jr. Surrett has 5, 7, 8, 9. Oh. Square that at 9 for Fuller Jr. Those custom comets.
Yes.
Not getting the head pin after 3 balls.
Comet seems to be a very popular choice of late.
Yeah, and
not cheap.
No, they are not, especially when they're custom like that. But
Yeah.
I feel like it's a topic of discussion in terms of the marketing that goes into the Comets versus the Cobras, which, according to Bob Perella, as he's told Frank, to me, and me, right to the face, that it's the same ball. That's all it is.
I bought Cobras. Did I spend more than I needed to? For a guy with a 100 average.
The big 5 for Pelletier. And a single pin for Sacchetti as he was in the Brooklyn pocket.
You can see the toe cover on Eric's left foot. Not his sliding foot because he's a lefty.
Spare it up for Sacchetti.
Now he does kind of drag his foot behind his sliding foot, so I guess he's probably gone through too many pairs of shoes to come up with this. Is this something that you can buy off the rack? I'm wondering. It is. Okay. Not seen that before.
Saw Eric's dad, Norm, in the house. 159 through the middle that time. Bonus for Sacchetti. Big 8. 5-9 for him. Sacchetti taking an extra moment to study that 2-pinner, that wood. He's got to try to get around it and go outside. Or just drive it straight through.
Caught a nice break because, boy, that's more often than not, that'll get you.
7 that time for Eric.
Come on, guys, let's go, bud. Come on. Let's go.
Many of the Canadians are sticking around to watch. I know a lot of them have jobs and need to get back home.
Some. One of the proprietors of Unbelievable Lanes is sticking around to watch the action. Diamond plus the 7 for Strangio. Baker leaves the 2. That's duck soup. So much easier when you have that piece of wood in there like that.
Love to see that happen.
Yes.
Kind of contains all the pinfall in one little confined area. Down they go. Another look at the scoreboard. Close to a 60-pin difference, and they ended up with a 58-pin advantage. Academy Lanes after the first string as we approach the midway point of this 3-game set.
Will the 4 go? Good fill. 4-6. Nice try. 7's still up. For Baker. See what Strangio can do on this one. 10 for Baker. And an 8 box. Corey Packard has a pair of 10s.
Come on, Corey. Let's go, bud.
Godwin spare 8 plus a 10 to put him at 28. 4 horsemen left. Corey lives in Sutton, Mass, in the Worcester area, the birthplace of Candlepin bowling. So he looks at the 4 horsemen left plus the 9.
Speaking of Worcester, I just worked on a little project with Channel 4. There's a beautiful takedown of the 4 horsemen left side. They do a series about different towns, ball taking out the 7, in Massachusetts, and so they picked Worcester. And well, Worcester is the home of rocketry, by the way. I think Goddard was the inventor of rocket-propelled motion, but also, of course, Candlepin bowling in 1880. And so they, now that I'm an author, I get calls for stuff like this, and they asked me to be a part of it with Bob Perella and Maria Angelotti, and we went out to Colonial Bowl, which is the last remaining bowling center in Worcester. And we did some taping out there, and it should be showing up on Channel 4 fairly soon.
Excellent.
And by the time you see this, very possibly it will be airing. But I've been digging around trying to find old photos, and they do a really good job, and so see how they turn out with the Candlepin bowling. I actually got to bowl a couple of, not strings, a couple of frames with Kate Merrill, who was the anchor who did the piece. And you know, I'm not a power bowler by any shot, but the second ball I threw, I threw a hammer. And I turned to them and I said, if you don't use this, you do not have my permission to put me on Channel 4.
Nice shot by Godwin, taking out the horseman, plus the 8-pin. Not much you can do with the Woolworth. A 10 box.
I like his style. He's got a nice wind up and good follow through.
That big backswing. This is a look at
Yeah.
Godwin's spare. Corey's been very solid for a long, long time. He's on the CN8 Comcast show, as we just see something that Dave probably hasn't done since he was 2. Big hit and a strike.
How demoralizing is that when the guy you're bowling against throws a hammer and you just hit a punch out?
And I think that goes back to the mindset, being a little tight versus being loose and freewheeling. And I feel like we see more of that from Academy so far.
Yes.
But there's a lot of match to go as Norcross's strike. We see the kick on the 6 here. Barber at 28 right now, as is Norcross, but he has those 2 bonus balls.
Boy, that could have been, huh?
Good shot at his first mark with the 6-10. See where that would settle down. 7 on the first for Norcross. Nick working for the Ganges at the Woburn Bolodrome as Barber goes wide left.
Longtime family owners of that fine facility right there in the center of town.
Certainly one of the cornerstones of the industry. Barber takes 9.
I actually went there for my book. I did an interview with Janet Pock and Bruno DeFeo, and why would we put those two together? Well, as I'm sure you remember, Kyle, it was the first time that a woman made it on to the Channel 5 live show, and you can imagine all the taunting and all the tension. Would Bruno lose to a woman? I mean, you say something like that now, and the PC police come and take you away. But that was we used the elephant in the room. Even Don Gillis, Bruno told me, made a comment to him when they were in the men's room. And Janet was feeling tremendous pressure because here she was, the first woman bowling against a man on a live show. And it was remarkable. She did herself well. That was a great shot by Mr. Fuller Jr.
He's into this match.
You think?
Trying to pump his team up.
Look at this.
4 horsemen left, plus the 8 and the 10. Takes it out.
I don't know where he gets it from.
Still about that 60, 65 pin difference. They're, not making any inroads into the Academy lead midway through. And it is total pins.
Will that 6 go? I don't think that wood's going to be much help either as it's behind the 6. So 7 in the first. Surrett marks.
Can he do back-to-back amazing spare shots? Yes, he can.
Yes, he can.
That was nice.
So Fuller responds to the Surrett mark with 2 nice shots of his own. He's at 54 plus. Here's another look at it again. That would actually went behind the 6. That was behind the 2-4. This is Chris Sacchetti. Triangle right. Oh. It's another one of those shots.
Yeah, that's the second one he's had like that. I think his leadoff first frame shot was another head scratcher. There's always the debate in 10 pin. Does a lefty have an advantage over a right-handed bowler? And I don't know if that would ever be much of a discussion in the Candlepin world, where lane conditions don't seem to be that different. But we'll ask Frank next time we talk to him as designated southpaw on this crew, if he has any thoughts on that.
So 3 marks in a row for Sacchetti here. He's at 62 plus. Looks like he's getting into a groove, throwing a real good ball so far. Look out.
I would say that's an understatement.
And Eric throws the same ball.
Yeah.
5, 8, 9, and 10.
His ball is not as direct, and if you're going away and you just hit the head pin on the going away side, you're going to leave something like that.
Come on, guns, let's go, bud. Let's go.
He's only he's only missed the head pin once so far.
All right, guys, let's go.
Zucchetti, Brooklyn work. There's the 9. Five, 6, and 10. Baker has some work to do looking for his first mark of the second. He'll shoot at the high-low jack. Getting back to what you're saying about Janet, I met Janet a few years ago. What a nice person. Just really nice lady. I think she still feels some of that. I don't know if I want to call it discrimination, but that's still, at least in my opinion, in talking with her, with being the first woman and all the pressure that comes with that, and some of the words that may or may not have been spoken by some of the bowlers there or some of the production people that were there that night. But that's so tough too. Not only is it the, at that point in time, one of the biggest events in the Candlepin calendar, but you only have one string at a time until you get to the final, and there's no room for error, so stakes are high.
Well, I don't want to give anything away, but we did talk about that aspect of it and how she still feels today. That was a pretty shot.
Yes, it was.
And there were some misconceptions on, I think, the part of both Bruno DeFeo and Janet Pock, and I write about them in the book Lunch with Tommy and Stasia. And you'll read about it. In fact, it was when the interview was done that they started talking about that. So I put the phone back on again and said, "Wait a minute, we got to get the real story here. Let's get the unfiltered version. How do you both really feel?" And it was good to hear. I think the air was cleared. And I remember that day watching that match on TV. She only lost by 2 or 3 pins, or it was pretty close. I can't give you the exact score.
1994. Of course, that was the third time Dick O'Connell won the True Value Championship.
I think Tommy was on that ladder, wasn't he? Or no?
No, well, you're talking about Ulster?
Yes.
Yeah, he actually he was hurt, but he went into the final against Dick and just didn't have anything left at that point. Actually, I believe Ulster and Bruno went into overtime.
They did. In
that second round match, and Ulster prevailed and went against one of my guys, the late Tom Morgan. Speaking of Tom Morgan, as we take a look at the scoreboard here, and that lead from Academy is widening. Already have 2 marks up this pair. Can you describe the emotion that Tournament of Champions taping when Tommy was close?
Yeah, close to passing. I think he died a few months after. I think we taped in April, and if memory serves, he passed in September, I think. Well, I can tell you that I cried that day, as I think everybody in the audience did. We wanted him to do well. You know who I felt bad for was Gary Santora, because Gary Santora
just doing his job.
Was just doing his job, yeah. And it was, especially at the end when the presentations were made, and I'm standing up there on the lanes with my microphone, thinking, "Yeah, it's okay to cry right now, Mike." And it was just maybe the most memorable day of my 8 years on Candlepin Stars and Strikes. It was great, and I got to know Tommy and Mike pretty well. I was at a benefit that was held for him. Actually, was the DJ for it. Probably, I think it might have been in May. Might have been the month after, the show aired, or maybe it was the year before, but it was sometime in the spring. And having all the bowlers there, and it's just such a great brother and sisterhood. in Candlepin bowling. It's a small sport. Everybody knows everybody. Everybody's got everybody's back for the most part. And you really felt it with the Morgans.
Dave Barber has made a change, taking himself out. So that says a lot about a gamble that he's making as captain, and putting in Jonathan Boudreau as Dave went 38 after 4. Takes out the Horseman.
Yeah. So it's a gamble that's paying off at least after one box.
Getting back to Tommy, I saw him I think it was November of 01 at the first taping of Bryan Fuller Jr. being on TV. It was for the Comcast show, and I had known that Tommy was sick, and I said, "What are they going to do?" He's like, "Oh, at this point, we're gonna look into something experimental." At that point, this was at the Beverly Bolomat. Mike was there too, and as soon as he said that, I'm like, not only is it not good, but oh, what a great shot! The big 5.
Wow.
So far, we talk about that gamble, the 3-6-10 on the right.
Would he have made the spread eagle? Was there enough of a slice or an angle? He may have nipped the 2-pin, possibly.
Maybe.
That's usually not how you make it, I don't think, but maybe.
Eat 'em up.
1, 9, and 10 for 4. A little ugly first, but Jeff has the 3-pin to look at.
Hit it.
So 3 in a row for Surrett. Maybe the momentum is changing a little bit in the middle of the second string here of this 3-string championship match. The winner to split $10,000.
So explain how the substitution rules work for people that maybe have never come to a Worlds event. When can you do it? How often can you do it?
You have up until the 6th box of a string, unless you're on a fill at that point. And what you also will see, as well as Jeff takes out the 1, 2, and the 10. He's fired up. The captain has that opportunity the following string to alter the order, which could be different from the initial order that you started the match with. I think it's once per bowler. Well, per spot on the of the order, I should say. There's a 3 and 1.
So you can't take somebody out after 2 boxes. If he substitutes in the 5th, you want to take him out. You can't put a 3rd person in for that.
Double him up. I'm sorry. So if you get subbed out, you have the opportunity to come back in, as long as it's before the...
Not in the same game?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Our official score says it's the next string. So that speaks to my ignorance as we take a look at the back end of...
And you and I will never be bowling on a Worlds team, so we'll never find out
Hey,
firsthand.
You know what? I've had enough of your negativity. You've got to be positive. Eric Pelletier.
I'm just keeping it real, buddy.
Chris Sacchetti working on a double right now.
There it is.
3 in a row. Wow, what a ball he's throwing right now. I tell you, he just gets in those zones sometimes, and it's a gamble, you could say, you could argue, because, again, he hasn't been bowling as much as he used to, but he gets in that zone and he's Very dangerous as we take a look at 3 strikes in a row right in the 1-3. Wow. So there's an answer for the little run that Surrett has made, essentially neutralized by this triple by Siketti, as we have a 2-pinner. That wood isn't great perpendicular to the pit.
Oh, he missed it so much that he made it.
Well, that's the kind of break that Lucky needs to get back in this. High hit on that wood, but I think he had to do that, play it near the cap to take out the 2 and the 4. Over 100 now. Ugh.
Talking about multiple strikes, I'm not sure what the record is for most strikes in a row in Candlepin. I want to say it's 7.
You would be correct.
I know that's what Ralph Sem had when he started his 245 game. He had the first 7 strikes in a row.
That's true. Those are the only 7 strikes I think he threw in his life.
Speaking of negativity, Ralph Sem is on line 2 for you right now.
Hey, that's fine. Ralph would even say that. I don't even think he hit 400 that night.
I don't know.
No, I'm serious. I don't think he did.
What's amazing though about that is he did it with house balls and house shoes.
House shoes. Yep. That's why you don't need Cobras. You can just use your house balls and throw 7 in a row. Strike after strike after strike.
Oh,
no
the
big deal.
proprietors are not happy with you now, Mr. Kyle.
That's all right. Big hit.
A little secret about bowling balls, you know, they grind them down or they polish them every couple of years. And eventually you do lose a little bit of the size of them. So I was talking to Dan Murphy recently, and he would deliberately have his ground down 1/32nd of an inch because he felt that it was just better for his grip, and he was willing to sacrifice whatever fraction of our kilograms or whatever in weight, but it just felt better in his hand.
How is Dan feeling?
Dan is doing well.
Excellent.
Yep. Dan had a little surgery and is coming along beautifully. Saw him recently.
That's
yeah,
great
he
to hear.
looks great. Good spirits. Probably I'd call him the instructor's instructor. I mean, you consider all the instructors that he certified, over 500 over the years in his bowling school.
Not only is he
Oh,
a great teacher, but also one of the best bowlers the state of New Hampshire has ever had.
absolutely. And you can read his story in a magazine piece that I've just completed for the February issue of New Hampshire Magazine, which you can't get it everywhere, but you can find it online. And there'll be a link to the story, and it's going to be a sizable story. And I interviewed him and a couple of other people for the story. I pulled some of the stories from my book too. I'll give you one very funny Dan Murphy story here.
Corners full for Packard. Godwin missing that 6-pin.
So back in the day, it was a tournament, I think, the WCBC in Bangor, Maine, probably at Charlie Milan's place. And the New Hampshire bowlers were going to be given a flight up by Ray Simino, owner of Leda Lanes and a licensed airline pilot. But it turns out that the plane, and it was going to take, let me tell you, Gary Duffett, Leon Belcourt, and Dan Murphy, and of course the pilot. So there were only 2 passenger seats, and then the pilot's seat.
You can see where this is going.
So who is going to be the one that flies baggage? So they flipped, coin, and it turned out that Dan Murphy had to lay down, in the fuselage with the bowling balls for the flight up to decide who is going to fly lying down on the way back. It was whoever bowled worst. Dan Murphy bowls worst, loses to Gary Duffett by 1 pin. He's got to make the return flight in the back too, where it's very cold. And Dan said years later, I got my pilot's license, and I realized, first of all, we were probably flying in a plane that was too heavy to fly. He said,
Nothing like taking your life in your hands for the game. That 7-pin will not go. Another mark. Once again, Boudreaux taking out the 4 horsemen.
Long week.
There it is again.
They're trying to copy me.
You can check out
That's
the
my
interview
signature
that
roll.
Frank and I did with Dan on the Alley Chat YouTube page.
I haven't seen all of them, but I do enjoy the Alley Chat feature, the interviews, podcast, the VCast or whatever you want to call them. I really enjoyed the one with Ralph Stewart, the former Lobline judge, and he has great stories. And I will admit right now, publicly, that I did steal some material from that for the book. I gave you credit, but there'll be no proceeds going to either you or Kyle.
Thanks, Mike.
Sorry about
You're a
that.
true friend.
It's
you
a
know?
low dough budget for
Wow.
the book.
Surrett working on another spare. One, 2, and 10 again. Thin hit for Fuller off the head pin.
How did
Not this
that not
time.
go down? He hits it right, and then all the wood flies in the direction of the 10 pin.
It's been that kind of match so far for
Yeah.
Lucky Strike.
That's a 9.
And that's a 9. Well, the action coming to you from Academy Lanes in the Bradford part of Haverhill, Mass. Big 5 for Surrett.
We saw this made just a few moments ago, a reverse version of it.
5-8 for Fuller Jr. Where he needed to be anyway. Fuller soliciting the advice of Dave Richards. Goes outside to take out that 2 pin. That wood was not good. Obviously he knew that. And able to negotiate his custom comets.
You talk about Dave Richards. Another pair of bowlers I sat down with was Dave Richards and Paul Berger.
A very good, the great Paul Berger.
That's indeed. With his 500 triple, and so I thought I would get those two together, as I did with Janet and Bruno, to just rehash that day and to have them go back and forth and talk about it. It was pretty good.
Show me a pretty one,
500
man.
with a 193 on the end for Paul that day.
And the automatic scoring, which was fairly new to Channel 5 at the time, couldn't keep up, and nobody was really sure what was, you know, did he hit 500? I'm not even sure that was on the radar because it never happened. I mean, bowlers, I think, always know, well, except for Chris Sargent, who claims that he doesn't pay attention to the score, and I believe him, but I think most bowlers typically know what they have and what they need and what they want.
Well, Chris was only 3 away from 500 on your show against
Yes.
Shaun Baker.
I don't know, was that the day that his father was there?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Mike was there. Yep.
That was a great moment, I felt. Another one of those, you know, you don't always appreciate it like you do now looking back, some of the moments that you've had.
It's crazy because Chris started so late bowling.
Yeah, he was
I
a
think
hockey guy, right?
Yeah, he was
Pretty much.
drafted by the Islanders, I
Yeah.
think.
Mm-hmm.
He started when he started bowling in Friday Pro. I think he bowled for Sunnyside for a year, and then he was up here bowling with Lafayette. I remember One year they won the playoffs at Pilgrim.
You want to hear a good story, a dog story about Chris and his dad?
I would.
Mike Sargent.
Yes.
So Chris is just a little kid. He goes with his dad. I think this was in Maine somewhere for a WCBC weekend 10-string pro tournament. And I guess that Mike Sargent had a side bet going with somebody else. I think it was a Maine bowler, actually. And he, it was for a considerable amount of money, several $100s anyway. Not uncommon in those days. So Chris Sargent beats this guy. The guy doesn't have the money. Oops. So they go out to the parking lot, I guess, to continue the conversation. I don't mean that there was a fight, because there wasn't. And this guy takes Mike Sargent, and Chris is with him, over to the guy's car, and he's got a St. Bernard puppy in it. And he says to Mike, well, would you accept this dog as payment? And of course, Mike doesn't want that. He wants the money. Chris Sargent wants the dog. He's 8 years old. Well, guess who won that one? Twice that day, Mike Sargent lost.
That's a story I did not know about Mike.
It's a story you'll read in Lunch with Tommy and Stasia.
I look forward to it.
Hundreds. Actually, I just told you the only 3 good stories in the book. Don't bother buying it, folks.
Okay, well, that's good. How many interviews do you think you did for the book?
I would say 60 or 70.
Wow. And how long has this process taken for you?
It took almost 2 years.
Wow.
And what you have to do is be really organized and have an outline and just call everybody that you can think of. Here's the downside of it is I didn't get to nearly as many bowlers as I could have or should have. It would have been impossible because, well, as we found out with the Hall of Fame last year, bowlers are sadly passing away. And you just need to get it out at some point. Say, well, this is what it is. I hope I didn't hurt anybody's feelings because I didn't talk to you. Like, I never got to Jackie Ray, and to this day that kills me because I love Jack Ray. Good friends with him. Known him for years. Action Jackson, yeah. One of the nicest people and probably the smoothest ball in Candlepins.
Oh.
But anyway, it took a couple years. It's an 80,000-word book, so it's, it'll take you a couple nights to read it.
That's the thing about 5 is that going off the air in '96 is that I believe Jack Ray would have been the number 2 seed in the live show at that point.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah,
oh.
I think it was like 453 against Reggie DeLine, I want to say. And you're right. I mean, one of the smoothest balls you'll find anywhere. And like I said, he was on that Bar Jam Lumber.
Yes, and that's the company he worked for.
Right. So, just tremendous. This is Corey Packard. Corey's been searching for marks here in the second string. Dave Godwin will have the 2-4 and the 10. And he slides by the object that time. Last time Academy Lanes hosted the International Candlepin Championship, like I said, 4 years ago. Both these teams, Lucky Strike and Academy, making it to the semifinals. Lucky lost to the champion, A+ Accounting, in the final in a close match. 45 was the difference. And in that semifinal, before they met Lucky Strike, A+ met Academy, and that was even tighter. That was 13. The difference in that one. So the more things change, the more they stay the same, as Packard has 3, 6, and 7. As Godwin gets a good break off the head pin. he's shaking his head. It's frustrating when you're on the object, but punch it straight back as Godwin converts.
Barely getting the object. All looks good on the computer screen.
That's right.
Goes into the book as a solid line drive base hit.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go, guys! Fuck. You gonna take me out?
Yeah, it'll be
you.
a 9-pin. And that closes out his second string with a 136.
The back pin was
Way to bounce back for Godwin.
I put him. I had to make sure
The 10-pin. Will not go. 3, 5, and 10 for DiBurro. Norcross takes out the single. His move so far has paid off for Barber. As another mark from DiBurro.
Come on, Nick. Carry me.
Who is a school teacher in
Yes.
his day job.
A paraprofessional for the South Boston School District.
I enjoy reading some of his Facebook posts when he talks about being on the tee or going into a restaurant where something kind of awkward happens. It's almost an edgier version of Seinfeld, just watching some of his comments. And if you know him, and I know both you guys do, it's not surprising. He could be kind of edgy.
Spare in the 10th. Outside
Nicely
that
done.
time. I think that's the third horseman that DiBurro has been able to convert. So matching spares in the 10th. Cross puts 5 in his mark. And that one got away from Jonathan, as you can see that frustration on his about face that time. Dave Barber was 36 after 4 and an 89 half for Boudreaux. Puts him at 125. So that at least keeps Lucky into it. But when you take a look at Sacchetti and that triple, that big 163, that at minimum keeps Lucky at bay. As Fuller has a single pin to look at. Surrett has the 247. Plays the cap, gets it done.
Why do I miss that shot every time I have the same thing like that?
I don't.
I've seen more cap shots on today's competition.
And you probably throw harder than he does.
I don't think so.
119 plus.
Yeah, that 163 looming large in this one. For Sacchetti.
Side saddle triangle for Fuller Jr. Surrett has a 2-pinner to work on. Both these guys really locked in right now.
Ah,
Nice shot. Another mark for Surrett. A look at the 2, 5, and there's the 8, the last one to go. Five for a fill. And 6 for Surrett. $133 for Surrett. 5 marks to get there. Every makeable shot that Surrett had, he took care of it. And that's part of the game.
and a 95 pin hill to climb for the third and final string for Lucky Strike.
And here we see Barber adjusting the lineup, putting Boudreau from the 4th spot, taking over for Dave, into the leadoff spot against Chris Sacchetti. Bouncing it up there, the corners are full.
There was a time years and years ago when that would have been a lob. Probably if ball didn't come down after it called a skip lob, but they would call those back, I think, in the 50s and 60s. I'm not sure when they stopped calling that, but
no, you're right. Remember Don Gillis talking about it.
I heard stories about Charlie Jutras having some difficulty with that occasionally.
Charlie just passing away.
Yes.
This past year.
Lost another great one. I had a chance to connect with him a year before he died for the book at French King Lanes in Irving, Mass. Ralph Sem arranged the meeting. And there was no getting around it. Charlie was at that point still pretty sick. He'd had brain cancer and I think a couple of different surgeries and chemo and everything else. But he could still tell some funny stories. And it was a great honor sitting there with him and getting his stories. He was the one that bowled opposite Ralph Sem in 245.
That was a bomb from Chris Sacchetti once again. Let's take another look at that. Again, working that Brooklyn side. Not only does Charlie have the 245 thrown at him by Ralph, but he also has the distinguishing honor of having 2 4-baggers thrown against him on Channel 5.
I did not know that.
Tom Olstad, Dick O'Connell. I have a Charlie story for you that may annoy some of our viewers, but what the heck? My very first TV taping that I attended was in 1981, I believe. It was Channel 27. It was the very first appearance of an 18-year-old Rico Baldinelli, who lost in the Challengers match. And Charlie was defending champion, going against Jim Johnson of Southwick. In order to retain his championship, Charlie needed to throw a triple to win, and he did.
Oh, wow.
I believe his wife was in the audience and made note of this curly-headed boy who had been very quiet during the taping. And she points it out to Charlie, and he gave me his trophy that day.
I had heard stories that he would give his trophies away. So you were the recipient of one of them.
That I was, yeah. That was the first. And I had never seen him since then,
Right.
Sadly.
His wife's name was Marion.
Do you have any fishing stories about Charlie?
There were a few, yeah. One of my favorites was he was fishing on September 11th, 2001 in the Hudson River within view of the terrible thing that happened that day, the World Trade Towers going down. And obviously they're on a boat. They don't know what's going on, but they can see smoke in the sky, not knowing. I'm not sure they could see the New York City skyline. They might have been able to, but that one particular memory was told to me by Ed Zernicke.
Wow.
But he won his share of tournaments. May have loved fishing more than bowling.
Wow.
People have told me that. I mean, Charlie didn't tell me that, but some people felt that. He's got tons of trophies.
Lucky opened their first 2, 3 marks out of 4 put up by Academy so far in this 3rd string.
And again, 95 pins to overcome. They've gotten a few of them back.
Big 5 for Baker. Barber moving Baker into the 3-hole. Corey looking to atone for his second string, which was a 93.
Good to see the Chief, Bill Treeful, in the audience. Of course, been a member of the Lucky Strike team for a long time.
I think they had him bowl the ceremonial string the last, I don't think he did this year, but I don't think he did last year or in at Lakeside either. I think he may have in Fredericton.
Yeah, I don't see his name on the roster.
Talk about a guy who had some bad luck on TV. Took him a long time to get his first win.
One of the most interesting people I think I know, just based on his life and what he's done, from being a police chief for much of his career. Now he works for an abbey, I'm not sure, Rentham or somewhere in that part of the state, where he is their official. I mean, he digs graves, he does the haying, he does everything that the nuns need, help with the jelly production and everything else.
Wow.
And he's, you know, he does it because he loves the people he works for and with.
Remember, he used to be a marathon runner.
No, I wouldn't be surprised.
Back in the day, yeah.
I wouldn't want to mess with him.
For the first 30 International Candlepin Championships, he bowled it, and he threw the first ball 3 years ago in Fredericton. I was surprised that, in a way, that the Worlds aren't, or the International Candlepin Championship, maybe we could talk about that too, didn't go back to Fredericton, because they have a gorgeous facility, and they just did a whole bunch of work. I guess they have a hotel that's attached there now, as you see a big strike from Dave Godwin. And the answer from Norcross.
Booyah.
Both of them quick, too.
I think the owner of the bowling center is, well, I don't think he still owns it, Gordon Burt in Fredericton. I think that's who it is. Saw him at the Hall of Fame induction in October. He and Art McMillan from Halifax came down because the Genomatis family was being honored that night for their service to the Candlepin bowling industry, and they were invited down to sit at their tables, and I got to sit next to Gordon, who I'd known from my early days in the ICBA, and it was great just catching up with those people. Somebody you know walks into your life that day, you don't expect to see him, and you're having dinner with them.
Yeah.
So that was, I love those dinners, and you said earlier it's a shame that, well, maybe it was an earlier conversation off air, but we talked about how it's
in a
an
production meeting.
Yes, in a production. Thank you.
Yes.
That should happen more than every 4 years. Now I realize it's easy for me to say because I don't have to coordinate it, but I'm afraid we're gonna, you know, have a lot of bowlers going in posthumously. That, gee, wouldn't it be nice to give them that honor while they're still alive?
Absolutely.
Maybe every other year, maybe.
How do you feel about the process itself in getting a bowler nominated, or not even a bowler, a contributor?
Well, as people may or may not know, you have to actually kind of sponsor somebody. You have to do a lot of digging. You have to get the stats. You have to find out things about them so you can build a case on why they should be inducted into the Candlepin Bowling Hall of Fame. I don't know if there is a better way, quite honestly. If you made it just by stats or numbers and had an arbitrary cutoff line, maybe, but that doesn't take into account other areas that I think should be considered. So I don't have an answer for how to make it better. But I do know that I'm thinking of people that I'm considering putting up for sponsorship, just because how can this person not be in the Hall of Fame?
There are a lot of names.
Boy, you got that
There's
right.
a ton of them.
Yeah. But then I think, it's another 3.5 years away or so, and people forget about it until it's a year before, and then hopefully that person is still alive. Now is the time. If you want to put somebody in the Hall of Fame, you need to be getting your case together now while the person is still with us. And everybody, our memories fade as time goes on. I can't tell you how many different versions of the same story I got from bowlers when I did the book. I had to go back sometimes and say, well, did this really happen? And in the case, that's a good shot of Gary Carrington, a couple stories, they weren't quite as he remembered them. I still put them in the book. They were hilarious. And he's a good sport.
Did he when you talked to him? Did he talk about the Hall of Fame and his feelings about it?
He did not. No, we didn't talk about that. What are his thoughts on it?
I don't know. I haven't had a conversation.
Well,
I'm just going by
one.
the rumor and innuendo, but I thought it had something to do with the perceived lack of respect that Dave Richards has gotten in a previous submission.
Oh, yeah, I can't speak to that. I don't know, but I'm sure those kinds of conversations happen all the time.
Those are two guys that definitely need to be in.
Yes.
In my opinion.
Couldn't agree more. And this year I got to be on the committee to decide, and I think Frank DeLuca was as well, right?
That is correct. Yes.
So it's eye-opening to sit in and hear the conversations and some things that never leave the room about some people that may keep them out. So it was, I don't want to say it was awkward, but it was eye-opening. I'll put it that way.
Just the 2-pin that time for
All right.
Sacchetti.
Can you explain how that happens? You're a man of great bowling knowledge.
I'll tell you why I think it happens. I have great bowling knowledge, but I can't bowl.
1 out of 2 ain't bad.
That's true, yes. I think it comes down to grip, as there's a fine bid from Sacchetti. And a great bid from Boudreau. The 9-pin is still there. I think it comes down to the grip of the ball. I think if you grip it a little tight, the ball flattens out, and you don't get any mixing action whatsoever. So that's when you get your 189.
Yep.
Or chairing the 2 and the 3. My dad told me a story once. He used to bowl out of Candlewood in North Reading. On a mark to win the match in the 10th, cherried the head pin.
No.
To lose by 1.
He hits the head pin and that's it?
Yes.
Wow. There's a Facebook post if there was Facebook back then.
Yes, I mean.
Because you see the 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 occasionally.
Right.
Wow. I don't think I ever bowled there, but I'm told it was a tough house.
It was. For years, my dad bowled on a Friday league there, but I think that's part of the reason why the Surretts are as dominant as they've been, because you had to earn everything there.
Right. Yeah, if you can deal with your self-esteem, look at this, 7-10. Then you go out somewhere else, and you're adding 10 pins to your average.
Exactly.
Without doing anything different.
And on Friday Night Pro, for years, I think Tom won 5 titles, or his team won 5 titles, and they had a 3-peat. And I think that worked in their favor. Plus, I think back then the houses were a lot tougher than most of the houses are now. There's speculation that Academy is a tough house, and I think compared to Candlewood, Georgetown, no comparison.
Well, that's always an endless topic of discussion among bowling center owners, is how can we get scoring up a little bit higher than what it is? Because I've sat in on ICBA meetings where proprietors talk about that. That is a concern. But can you ever really make somebody happy? All right, so let's say you get everybody's average up 10 pins. All right, so what do you do next? Well, another 10 pins. All of a sudden, you're bowling 10 pins because you make it so easy.
Yeah, but to me, that's the quick, easy way out. As a big ball that time from Eric Pelletier. That's the quick, easy way. You know, you can juice your plate.
Yep.
You can have atomic sidewalls or whatever.
Yep. Kickbacks.
Yep. You can move the curtain so that it's brushing the back row. All that stuff. But it's not real. What's real is, I feel like, as a proprietor, is engaging your repeat customers. And if you have a customer that wants to put the work in, then to me, as a proprietor, you need to be engaging these people and working with them, because this is a very tough game, and there aren't a lot of videos that you can go in on YouTube, for example, or go to seminars, and there's no academy like the USBC has for 10-pin.
Right.
So, and that hard work does pay off, but part of the reason that I keep the statistics for events like this is to show that you need to be hitting the head pin, you need to be filling your marks, you need to be marking, period. If you have a makeable shot, if you have a single like this, you gotta hit your single. You gotta make sure that you get every pin as quickly as possible. Don't leave pins up. You hear it time and time again, as Corey has a nice bid on that split, that it comes down to pinning. It's a lot harder to make your spares and your 10 boxes than it is to throw strikes. There's a look so far of what's happening in this third string as Academy has pushed it over 100. 4-5-7 for Corey. Baker will look at the Four Horsemen, right?
So what kind of movement is there within teams once the Worlds is over and maybe somebody wants to leave or a captain wants somebody else? How are those overtures made, and how are teams reconfigured?
Through Facebook Messenger.
Oh, really? No, well,
and probably copious amounts of beer somewhere along the way.
And Bud Light, which I noticed to be the official World's
it
beverage.
is the official beer of you would think Candlepin, Castle Island Brewing would have.
You would hope, yeah.
Right, but
well,
no.
it's a lot more expensive than Bud Light.
That's true, and
because it's a much better beer.
That's true.
Let's be honest.
Right, but Diet Bud is certainly the favorite of Shaun Baker of Lucky, who takes a 7 that time. But getting back to your question, I feel like there are conversations that start during the week.
Oh, while they're bowling together, huh?
Sometimes.
While they're all there together, why not?
Correct.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're, and that's why I feel like there's less movement on the Canadian teams, generally speaking. We only see 9 Canadian teams this year. I believe a lot of that's due to the Bud Light budget and also the exchange rate. More the Bud Light than the exchange rate, because you got to have your beer in your bowl. But I feel like the Canadian teams do a better job of maintaining their rosters. There seems to be less movement. I think that's part of Lucky Strike's success, is that for the most part, Dave has had the same group of bowlers. Now, do they have most of the American talent above 120? Yes, they do. And I'm not trying to overlook that. But I feel like it helps with your chemistry to have that back up your talent. You have the same group of guys going in pretty much every year. So that only helps. That's what makes Academy's story very compelling as we take a look at the 10-pin being left by Dave Godwin, because they've had so much movement. I mean, the last time that we were here at Academy back in 2014, the only people that were here were Chris Sacchetti, John Starner, and Mark Strangio, as I'd said before.
Well, time is running out with a sizable chasm between the two teams. I like to work the word chasm into a bowling broadcast whenever
Why not?
I can.
I'm sure
It
Dick
kinda
Lutz
works.
did when he wasn't. Did he ever brag to you about being on Sox Talk back in the day?
No, he didn't. But he reminded him at least every 3 frames that he was from Worcester, the birthplace of Candlepin bowling. And we did have our annual grudge matches at the ICBA and up at Pilgrim for the kids trip fundraiser. And when he would beat me, I'd be hearing about it for 8 months.
It's a long 8 months.
It was a
during
very
the
long 8
season.
months.
And a long tape day, too.
But I got to say, Dick is one of the most professional broadcasters I've ever worked with.
Wow.
He's, just knows exactly how to do it and when to say it. I never met him before we connected on Stars and Strikes.
That's going to be tough, too. Maybe take a look at Fuller Jr. making the Four Horsemen and pointing to somebody in the gallery. No such luck for Surrett, dealing with the diamond left plus the 10. It's interesting that the people at Channel 50 had no idea that you knew what you knew about Candlepin
I'm
bowling.
pretty sure they didn't know that, because that's not how they did things there. And I don't want to disparage anybody, but and I have no idea, and neither do Dan Murphy and Doug Brown know why they weren't invited back. They were there from day one when the show began, and they were just told at some point that their services were no longer needed, and it left Doug, understandably, a little bit bitter. And talking to Dan about it, Dan just rolls with it. So I didn't even know that happened when I was asked. I had no idea what the circumstances were. I was being asked, and it was something that was on my bucket list, something I thought I could do, so I took it.
Teddy taking out that single, getting by that front piece of wood.
Not a whole lot of drama here with half a string to go. But it is great. Here's what I love about this format versus a singles show, is that there's always something going on. And the bowlers are turning over, and you're seeing different styles, different ways to shoot maybe the same spare. And it's logistically, it's tough probably for a production crew, but props to our team today, headed by Frank DeLuca.
Can we just say it is Frank? And Frank is the five different hats that he wears in this production as Sacchetti slides by the two.
And the Candlepin chat guy along with you, right?
Or
is that your?
I have nothing to do with Candlepin chat.
So it's all Frank all the time?
No, that's actually Fuller Jr. started Candlepin chat.
Oh.
Believe it or not.
Didn't know that.
Well, that's something else you can put in your book. If you ever have a hardcover, that
right.
Second release.
The hardcover version.
That you pick up there. You might be thinking about Alley Chat that Frank and I
that's it, yes. I'm sorry.
That's quite all right. 3-1 for Strangier. Pelletier on the single. And exactly how he wanted to play it. A 9 box. Here we take a look at that tech spin single. Redlining that front piece of wood where the 3 would be. Given the ball he's thrown today, though, he's deserved a better fate. So he's due for something like that to happen as he fills his spare with 6.
At the end of the day, do breaks ever even out for any given bowler?
I feel like, I don't know, I kind of look at things as Eric has another mark. I kind of go back to what Bill Parcells would say about your record in the NFL. Like, you are what your record is.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, it's all about making adjustments. And there's always going to be, I think there's always going to be adjustments that you have to make because every place is different. Conditions are different. The only thing that stays the same is you. So you have complete control over how you can make adjustments. So if the approaches are tacky, there are things that you can do to make sure that you have a good slide, for example. You might be gripping it too tight, and that causes you to punch. Your timing might be off. You might be rushing to the line rather than, taking your time. The way the ball comes off your fingers, if it's not coming off the tips like that, as Packard blasts down 9 in a hurry, leaving the 4. I mean, the easy thing to do is something that we've all done is blame the house. And I'm not trying to exonerate every house.
But we're all playing at the same house.
Correct. So we all have control over what we can do to try to succeed there. +52 for Packard.
Cicchetti leading the way again, or certainly with a really good start. 93 in the 6th after his 163 middle string.
He just kept that momentum rolling along. Academy's been riding that wave as Corey has the 8-pin.
So explain the money structure again at the end of the day.
Academy or Lucky Strike, well, it looks like it's going to be Academy at this point, given the lead. They will split $10,000. The runner-up will split $5, I believe. And there's about 30 grand that goes into the prize pool.
Okay, and what is the entry? Excuse me, entry fee per bowler?
I want to say it's around 400. Oh, okay. I completely lied to our audience, so forgive me out there in internet land. So to put in a team, it's about $1,000 for the 33 strings maximum per bowler in that 11-match round robin to get into the playoffs.
Does that include the knockout singles at the beginning?
No, that's
no,
something
that's
separate.
Okay. Oh, look at this.
And the winner of the knockout, actually, that's something I'm glad that you brought that up, Mike. Mark Carrier, for the second time in 3 years, is the singles knockout champion out of Vacation Land in the state of Maine. He's a former ICBA champion. A solid bowler. 2-2 for Norcross. Dave Godwin has been doing what he can to keep Lucky in this match. Oh! And a 10. 88 plus for Godwin. Fuller Jr. has a spare up in the 4th. And Surrett touches them all. Six fill. One could say, Mike, that these guys up now are better bowlers than their dads were. And for Jeff, that's saying something because, as we talked about, his dad, Tom, just inducted into the Hall of Fame.
And a good reason why I really do hope the Hall of Fame continues, because it would be a shame to see somebody like Jeff Surrett, who I think we all agree, at this point in his young life, is very deserving and probably will continue to be. But he's, well, let me see, I think he was born in '83, so he's only 35 years old. 15 years till he's eligible.
Right. Same with Fuller Jr.
Yes.
Actually, they're 7 weeks apart, I want to say. No, less than that.
Look at
shot.
that. But all going for naught, it looks.
Does your book have a pre-order?
It does not, and a couple different reasons. One, there have been some delays in the production with the publisher, and I don't want to be taking people's money if I'm not sure when the date is going to be. I can't really say because even as we watch this, don't have a drop date yet for it. Another reason is that I want to meet people face to face and sign their books. I want to go to bowling centers, which I'll do for proprietors that'll have me. I'll do a couple launches at bookstores, but I want to be mostly in bowling centers because those are my peeps. So, yeah, I could sell them ahead of time, but it's not going to move the needle on my standard of living that much. I'd rather meet the people that love bowling and talk with them and give them a signed copy.
Of course.
So I'm hoping it'll be in January, and I have a planned trip to Florida in February. Well, hello, there's a whole lot of New England people that live in Florida, especially in the retirement communities like the Villages where Gary Duffett lives. And I've got friends that can help set me up with, bookstores and book clubs and everything else. So got to kind of wait and see if that's going to happen or not.
All right, right here. Come on. Have one here, bud.
But it was a great experience just digging in and getting the stories that haven't been told yet.
And there's so much to learn about this great game because so many records have been lost. I mean, Frank's done a great job and Dave Barber in trying to catalog all this material.
Mm-hmm.
Dottie Lorick, another one.
Yes, I spoke with Dottie for the book. And you walk into her house, and it's like all this bowling stuff. Well, I mean, she brought it all downstairs, but I mean, her father, from the very first show in October of 1958, kept the scores, the finals, for every week. And then she got married and moved out of the house, and because she wanted to continue it, she then had to do it for herself. And so she's another great archivist in the game, as Frank is, and a couple other people. Why this book was never done before, I don't know. I wish I'd have done it 10 years ago, to be quite honest with you. Because we're just, we're losing bowling centers and people, and it was still on TV then. But better late than never, I guess.
That's true.
And I did run it by, there's one person who's read it. And I'll tell you who it is. It's Irby, John Kafalis, because I think he just knows all this stuff. And I said, would you go through this and see if there's any glaring errors? So he did find a few spelling errors, and I was pleased that there wasn't much content that he didn't feel was quite accurate. And I was pleased that he would do that for me.
Well, he made a fine choice because Irby is another custodian of bowling
Yes,
history.
he is. And he's also, in my opinion, an intellectual and a really interesting, quirky guy, as this game is a quirky game, if I may say so.
It is.
Not if you grew up here, I guess, but for the rest of the country, and me as a transplant, it strikes me as quirky, endearing, and I love it.
Well, he's got an interesting story because he moved out to Arizona years ago and came back and really gave it a go. I want to say in the late 40s, early 50s, and he has put so much work into his own game.
Oh, yeah.
And even as we see Dave Godwin going nuts. Good Lord. He sponsored Bob Moran because Bob Moran was his coach.
I understand that, yeah.
And he's just a really good dude. I've really like Irby. Nice guy. The 5-pin.
Rich Clark in the audience with us today, and down from Bedford, New Hampshire. He was a frequent flyer on Candlepin Stars and Strikes. Hasn't been active professionally that I'm aware of late. Has a farm, Clark Farms, and he's another really interesting guy. He's also a train enthusiast. He loves trains. I don't think model trains. He likes to go watch the real deal. But we would always, Dick and I would always be hoping that he would make the September or October ladder, because he would bring us all kinds of fresh corn from the farm. And a really nice guy. When I did morning radio on WZID in Manchester, he would call me sometimes and give me a weather report from the farm, like at 5:15 in the morning. Oh, we got frost this morning. Just want everybody to know. Or the roads are icy. And great guy. Rich Clark here with us.
Dan Murphy did a lot of work with him, I believe.
Oh, is that right?
Up at Boutwell's to get his game to the point where I believe he made it on Channel 5 in the 95 season and ran into Paul Berger in his 479.
Oops. And it was hard to get on that show. And then you finally make it and you get spanked.
Yeah, I mean, when you consider, the semis, and each obviously geographic area had their own semifinals and then a final out of that area, and they would move it around, and to beat 100 other bowlers at least out of one area, I can't imagine.
I'll tell you who might surprise you was trying to make the Channel 5 show was the Stars and Strikes announcer Doug Brown. He was a decent bowler. He made it to the finals a number of times in the qualifying round, but he never got beyond that. And they actually on Stars and Strikes one season did a full 3-string match between Dan Murphy and Doug Brown. I don't have to tell you who won that one,
right.
But Doug did not embarrass himself. I think he had something like 320 or 330.
Yeah, no, that's not bad.
No.
When you're going against Dan Murphy,
yeah,
you need a little more than that.
Oh yeah, that's for sure.
The 3-pin for Dave Godwin remains. One of the things I regret not doing at the banquet was telling Hugh Ferguson's son a story about his dad. In that, you see Godwin take care of that single. My uncle.
Another bounce back out of the pit.
Yes.
On the 410 split.
I wonder if that curtain is a little shallow, because we've seen 3 times anyway. The ball's coming back and.
Yeah, more than you would on an average league night.
Right. My uncle was alternate maybe something like 8 times on the Channel 5 show.
Oh, is that right?
Singles and doubles. And the final for South Shore was at Viking Recreation in East Bridgewater. My uncle threw 676, and whoever was working the desk that day said, in this house, that's pretty good.
Uh-huh.
It was one of the earlier shifts, and in the last shift, he finds out that Hugh Ferguson breaks the record 753. As we see Dave go. Once again, he's on his way to a fine total.
And wait for it.
Yeah. Shot was wired, elected to redline it, and look how pumped he is.
It's a great shot. Well, now they're just having fun. Things are pretty much decided. Not much chance for Lucky Strike, sadly. But congratulations to Academy on the verge of taking this year's World's Team title after a week's worth of bowling in middle of November.
And if you consider, as a proprietor, all the work it takes to get ready for an event of this magnitude, I mean, I'm sure, and that's one of the things we want to do is we want to commend the efforts of the DiBurros, specifically Ted and Josh, as Fuller takes care of that 10-pin, because that is an 80, 90-hour week getting ready for 24 teams.
And wiping out your leagues for the week.
Right. And honestly, they're taking a hit by doing this.
Oh, I believe it.
But it says a lot about their enthusiasm and their desire to put together a host first-class event.
By all accounts, they did. There you go. $1,300. No. That reference to the Channel 5 days when the bowlers would shoot for the high-low jackpot within a building amount of money every week that somebody didn't make it. I guess I shouldn't assume that everybody remembers that, especially the really young people in our audience. I think Stasia made it how many times?
I don't know.
3, 4, 5 times?
I remember Sharon Rawson making it when it got to be 3,400. I mean, it didn't get made for like 3 years.
You're kidding? Oh, wow.
And then it got to $3,400.
Wow.
I think it was 93, something like that, when she made it.
I should have asked Phil Rubin that when I interviewed him.
That's a fascinating, or must have been a fascinating.
Oh, it was great. Phil Rubin was terrific. He began his time at Channel 5 before he got into the production end of it as one of the kind of runners for the Bozo the Clown show, which as we know, or maybe you don't, Frank Avrush was Boston's Bozo the Clown. Now, every big city had its own local Bozo the Clown. It was syndicated, but it wasn't the same person on a network basis. So Frank Avrush, who also did the announcing for Candlepin Bowling, was Bozo the Clown, and so he got to, lug out the boxes of balloons for the kids show and put the candy packages together. Kind of humble beginnings, but he eventually became just a top-notch producer and director of that show.
I didn't know that Frank. Well, I mean, I was probably a little too young to see Bozo, but from way back then. But I remember Frank doing a lot of the voiceover.
Yes, that's right. 5. Today's cross pen and pencil set for the runner-up. Yeah, that was him. He did a lot of voiceover stuff.
As we see the celebration commencing in the back, John Starner openly weeping.
I'm on the verge of tearing up myself.
One more to go.
Hey, one ball for the fans, Chris.
129 plus.
Attaboy.
5 more. $134 for Chris Sacchetti.
And a 417 triple.
Wow. I'm going on record right now as saying, when you consider that he hasn't really been bowling in 2018, to come in the clutch like that, that's one of the bigger clutch performances in the history of this tournament.
That's a good point, considering coming into today's action, averaging 112.
Right.
So he's 80 pins over for a triple.
Right.
Essentially of his average.
I mean, he doesn't even hold an average. That 112 is just based on this week. I mean,
That's right.
when Chris is right, I mean he's 123, 120, 123 in that zone. Pelletier at 117 plus. Two, 7, 8. Got to give Strangio credit, I'll tell you. I mean, he made all the right moves as captain.
And bowled rather consistently himself today.
Yes.
115, 125, and 121.
Good break off the head pin for Shaun Baker.
Let me just say that I appreciate being invited here today. Excuse me. It was a good time.
Well, it's great to have you.
A lot of fun stories to share.
Well, I can't wait to read the rest of them, considering all the interviews that you did and all the ground you cover. And I feel like if you're a fan of the sport, you're generally aware of a lot of the same stuff. But there's the triangle being made by Corey Packard. But I didn't, like, for example, that story about Mike Sargent. I mean, I remember as a kid bowling with Mike at Academy against my dad and my uncle. So I'd never heard the puppy story, though.
Yeah, and why would you?
Right.
And I'm not even sure what I asked Chris to elicit that story.
Right.
Just tell me some memories about traveling with your dad. Because obviously, as you look at the lineup of bowlers today, these guys all went with their dads probably. And there's where the stories come. And that one stuck with Mike. Or Chris, I should say. Mike passed away a few years ago. The senior sergeant. Even with frozen wood, that one didn't go.
Lucky trying to make it 2 out of 3, and just didn't happen for them this time around.
Not really that close either.
127 for Corey Packard, rebounding from that 93 middle string. Dave Godwin's last 2. No doubt about that one. He's going to go over 400. Oh, what a great recovery
That's
from
such
Norcross.
a pretty shot when that goes. Because you hate it when you leave it, and then you wipe it up.
That puts Norcross at 112 plus. Oh, 158. What a week. I mean, the fatigue by this point, you got to be going on pure adrenaline, trying to ward off that exhaustion, because this is the premier pressure moment of this sport. 163 for Dave Godwin, 423, I believe. As Surrett scatters 9. Another mark for Jeff. Nine for Bryan, puts him at 101 with 1 to go.
I'm sorry, Kyle. Can we assume the Academy team will stay intact for next year? Are you hearing anything? Otherwise,
I normally would be a person to know if there were any news, but as far as I'm aware right now, it's all systems go for a opportunity to retain their championship up in Moncton.
do we have the date yet for that?
I do not. However, generally it's the same week that Veterans Day falls on, and there are 23 teams in the International Candlepin Championship, and then there's Academy Lanes, the champions of the Candlepin Bowling World in 2018, as we see the celebration unfold.
And some tears.
Oh, yes. Well, Bryan started crying halfway through the first, I think. Actually, even before that. I lied to you. Before that, before this match, he was very emotional because it's something that he always dreamed of being a part in. And now he can call himself world champion. So there's a look at the final, 1872 to 1790 for Lucky Strike, Academy Lanes, the new champions of Candlepin Bowling. Very consistent too, 617, 639. We see Mark Gregory in the background looking like he's... I'm not even sure what he's doing. But a champion for the first time after 23 years. So that's the story from Academy Lanes in Bradford, Mass. Academy Lanes, the 2018 International Candlepin Champions. For our entire crew, Frank DeLuca, Mike Morin, I'm Kyle Bruce. We'll see you next time on Alley Chat, the web's only Candlepin Bowling podcast.